Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dorothy and today we'll be learning how to drag the basic body block on a pattern paper. If this is something you're interested in, let's get started. I've gone ahead to place my pattern paper on the table. Right now, as you can see, I am using a sellotape to hold the edge of the pattern paper to the table. This is to avoid the paper shifting when we are drafting the basic bodies. From the top of our pattern paper, I went ahead to roll out a line of about half an inch. This line will serve as our baseline or our shoulder line where measurements will be taken from. Let's go ahead to mark out our horizontal line. Our horizontal lines are our bust point, our waistline, and our hip line. So from my shoulder line, I came down by 10 inches, which is my bust point. Then I came down by 16 inches for my waistline. I marked that out as well. Then I came down by 24 inches and marked that out. Then I'm going to use my roller to roll out the lines. Let's go ahead and take our measurements for the neckline. I'll be using 3 inches for both the width and the depth. This is the standard measurements for an average human. You can go ahead and do the same thing on your pattern paper. So right now I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to connect the line together like this. From the midpoint where my neck depth and my neck width stop, I'm going to use a ruler to connect to rule a line across it like this. Then I'll go ahead to measure that line and divide the line by 3. This process will make us to know where we're going to connect the points together to make our neck depth. For me, I had 4.5 inches. 4.5 divided by 3, which is now 1.5 inches. So I went ahead to mark out 1.5 inches. So I will use my armhole curve to connect the line together. Alright, this is now our neckline. Right now, let's go ahead and take our shoulder measurements. My shoulder is 16 inches. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So I place my tape rule and measure out the 8 inches on my shoulder line. So from the point that I marked my shoulder measurements, I came down by half an inch to mark a point there to mark my shoulder slope. Then I went ahead to connect that half an inch measurement to my neckline. You know that the shoulder is not straight. The shoulder, every human shoulder is slopey. From the point where I mark half an inch for my shoulder slope, I'm going to go down there to take my armhole measurement. My armhole is 16 inches. Divide by 2 is 8 inches. So I went ahead to mark out 8 inches downward on that line. Then I'm going to use my ruler to connect that line. So I'm going to go ahead to roll out that line all the way. This line will now serve as my chest line or upper chest line. So I'm gonna go ahead right now and label out the lines like this. I'll label out my chest line, my bust point, my waistline, and my hip line. To create our darts, we are going to take the measurement of our bust span or nipple to nipple measurement. For me, my nipple to nipple measurement is 8 inches. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So I went to my bust point and marked out 4 inches. I also went to my waistline. I did the same thing as well, and also on my hip line. I went ahead also to mark out the 4 inches. So I will use my ruler and connect the point together from my bust point to my waistline to my hip line. I will connect the lines together like this. On my bust point line where my dart started, I'm going to call that my apex or apex. So from that line I came down by 1 inches, and I'm going to go to the hip line and mark out 2 inches. You can use 3 inches, but for me I'm going to go up by 2 inches, and I'll mark that out. Then on my waistline I'm going to take my dart measurement, that is 0.5 inches on the both side. Then I went ahead to connect the line together from my bust point down to my waistline, just like this. So right now let's go back to our armhole and finish our armhole measurement. So from my armhole line I'm going to measure it back, which is the 8 inches that I measured earlier. I'll divide the 8 inches by 2, which was 4, and I mark out the midpoint. Then I came out by half an inch. I came out by half an inch and making mark there. So I'm going to connect the line down to create my armhole depth. Right now we are going to take our body measurement. So right now I'm going to divide my bust measurement, divide by 4, which is 36. Divide by 4, 9. I went to my my chest line and mark that out. Then I also take the same measurement for my bust line, my bust point. Then on my waistline I divide my waist, which is 30, divide by 2, and divide by 4, rather 7.5. Then the dart measurement, I'll measure the dart, then I'll, which is 1 inches, I went to mark that out on my waistline as well. Then on my hip line I measure out my hip, 40 divided by 4 is 10, so I mark that out. So from from what I have measured, I am going to use my ruler to connect the lines together like this. Please, if you've not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe, like and share, and do not forget to drop a comment. For our side dart, I will measure from my chest line down to my waistline. As I'm pointing on this like this, I'll measure it. Whatever number or figure that I have, I'm going to divide it by 2 and mark it out. For this I had 7 inches. 7 inches divided by 2, I had 3.5. So I'm going to measure out 3.5 for my side dart. So right now I will go ahead to use my ruler to connect the line from that 3.5 line to my apex on my bust point. On this new line, I'm going to go down by 1 inch as well. Then for my dart intake, I'm going to divide 1 inches, which is 0.5, mark it out like this. Then I will use my ruler to connect the line to meet the 1 inch I came down from the apex, just like this. So this is all for the front pattern. Note that if you're going to take this on your fabric, you're going to put all the necessary allowances like your seam allowance, and you're going to make sure that you fold your fabric into 2 before you cut it out. So right now I'm going to go ahead and cut out all the drafted parts. For my back pattern, I've gone ahead to place a fresh pattern papers on the table, and right now I've gone ahead to lay it down with sellotape, and I went ahead to roll out a base line or my shoulder line just like I did for the front pattern. So on my shoulder line, I'm going to mark out all the horizontal measurements just like I did in the front pattern for the front piece. So on my shoulder line, I came down by 10 inches for my bust point. Then on my waistline, I came down by 16 inches as well. Then on my hip line, I came down by 24 inches. After marking out all those points like this, I'm going to use my ruler to roll out all those points horizontally. For my neckline, I'm going to take my neck width 3 inches and my neck depth, I'm going to make it 1.5 inches. Then I'm going to use my armhole curve to connect the line like so. I will also go ahead to mark out my shoulder measurement. My shoulder measurement is 16 inches divided by 2 is 8 inches. Then I'll come down on that shoulder line by half an inch to mark my shoulder slope. Then I'll go ahead to connect the line to my shoulder to my neckline. Just like we did in the front pattern, we are going to, from that shoulder slope where I mark my shoulder slope, I'm going to come down by 8 inches for my armhole line. Then I'll connect the line upward to meet my shoulder slope. Then I'll also go ahead to roll out that line like this horizontally. This line will serve as my chest line or upper bust line. What I'm just doing is almost a repetition of what I did in the front pattern. So you just follow the same process. Let's go on to take our dart measurement. But for the back pattern, our dart measurement is going to start from the chest line. So I'll go ahead to divide my nipple to nipple measurement, divide by 2, which is 8 divided by 2 is 4. So on my chest line, I mark out 4 inches. Then on my bust point, I went ahead to mark out the same thing like this. I'll go on to mark it all the way to my waistline, then to my hip line. Right now I'm going to go ahead to use my ruler to connect the line together like this. Then on my chest line, I'm going to come down by 1/2 inch and mark it out. Then on my hip line, I'm going to go up by 2 inches, just like I did for the front pattern. I'll come up by 2 inches and mark it out. Then on my waistline, I'm going to divide 1 inch by 2 and share it for the both darts. That is the right and the left side of the dart. Then I'm going to use my ruler to connect the lines together. So back to our armhole line, I'll go on to take the midpoint of my armhole, which is 8 divided by 2, 4. I'll make a mark under 4 inches. Then I will use my armhole curve to curve the line. Note that at the back, for the back piece, you're not going to go out by any 1/2 inch. You just connect the line straight like that and make a curve. Right now we'll go ahead and take our body measurements, our bust measurements. My bust divided by 4 is 9. That is 36 divided by 4. Then mark it on my chest line and mark the same 36 divided by 4 on my bust point. Then on my waistline, my waist is 30. 30 divided by 4 is 7.5 inches. So I'll go on my waistline and mark that out like this. Then the dart intake that I take earlier, I'm going to measure it, which is 1 inches. Then I'm going to place it on my waistline. Then on my hip line, my hip is 40. 40 divided by 4 is 10. I went ahead to mark that out. So I'll go ahead right now to use my ruler to connect the line together. This is basically all about the back pattern. There is no side dart for the back pattern, so this is everything about the back pattern. If you watch this video to this point and you gain value, please do not forget to subscribe, like and share this video. Thank you. So I went ahead to cut out this piece. So guys, if you want to cut this out on your main fabric, please do not forget to put all the necessary allowances, your seam allowances, your zipper allowances, and all the allowances that you will need. Thank you.